There's been a huge breakthrough in the fight against Red Terror in 2025, with top Naxal commanders being eliminated, taking us one step closer to a Naxal-Mukt Bharat. Amit Shah has promised that under the Modi government, Naxalism will be wiped out in 2026. So let's decode for you how Naxalism took roots in India and decades on still remains a threat to our forces. Naxalism is a movement by left extremist groups. They've often been called Maoists too because they support Maoist ideology. It's a doctrine essentially developed by Mao Zedong to capture power from governments through armed insurgencies. So how did this movement actually seep into India? Let's go back to 1967, where Naxalism first took roots in the state of Bengal. The Naxalbari Uprising was led by peasants who revolted against landowners. That's where Naxalism also, by the way, got its name from, courtesy the village where the first revolt took place. The Naxalbari movement was backed by a group called the Siliguri Group. It's a faction of the CPIM. CPIM then was Communist Party of India Marxist. Leaders like Charu Majumdar, Kanu Sanyal and Jungle Santal vowed their support to these villagers and said that they were even willing to resort to an armed struggle to ensure land was redistributed to the landless. 11 people died in that struggle, including a police officer. But this was just the beginning. In 1969, the CPI-ML, which is Marxist-Leninist, was formed by the Siliguri group because of a rebellion within the party. And the movement started gaining ground beyond Bengal as well. Youngsters particularly were very taken by the movement. In terms like class enemies, annihilation line became the theme of the movement. What that meant is to assassinate those who belonged to powerful positions. It was in 1980 that Naxalism spread like wildfire in Andhra Pradesh, particularly along the Andhra-Odisha border. After Naxals abducted landlords, killed police officials, the government cracked the whip, setting up a special force called the Greyhounds, and thereby dented the extremist movement. Now, the next important date to remember in the Naxal movement is September 2004. This was when the CPI Maoist was founded through the merger of two Naxal groups. And after this, the 2000s unfortunately saw a bloodied conflict in many parts of the country. Between 2004 to 2023, 8,803 people have been killed in different parts of India because of Naxalism. According to the Home Ministry, majority of the civilians killed are tribals, often branded as police informers before being brutally tortured and killed by Naxalites. That's why the UPA government in 2009 banned the CPI Maoist under the UAPA, declaring it as a terrorist organization. Let's now talk about the worst affected states by Naxalism. Now, the influence zone of the Naxalites is called the Red Corridor, which spanned nearly 25 districts. Mind you, that number has drastically reduced today. But in the peak of the Naxal movement, it was Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Bihar, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and even Kerala. Now, the Red Corridor is usually some of the poorer districts with a high tribal population, and development, importantly, in these parts have been met with violence and complete resistance. Now, let's also talk and tell you about some of the worst Naxal attacks that India has witnessed. The most recent bloodied one was in April 2023 when 10 security personnel, while returning from a counter-insurgency operation along with the driver, were killed when the vehicle they were travelling in was blown up by Naxals. This happened in Chhattisgarh's Dantewada. And then there was April 2021, where 22 security forces were killed by Naxals, again in Chhattisgarh, but this time in Sukma district. But the worst attack on our forces by Naxals was in 2010, when 300 Naxals attacked a CRPF convoy when they were returning after an operation, leading to 76 CRPF personnel losing their lives. It's important to also highlight here that the deaths in the last few years due to Naxals have come down. More and more Naxals now are surrendering their arms before the government. How is the government ensuring this? Let's now get you the details of how the government is tackling the Naxal threat. The Modi government, under Home Minister Amit Shah, has vowed to end Naxalism by March 2026. That's the deadline they've set for themselves. And they're planning to do so by establishing rule of laws in Naxal-affected areas. That's basically first, stop illegal activities, and second, to ensure the development in those areas that were deprived of the same by Naxals, to ensure minimal support to the extremists. But the biggest step that's also in fact been a game changer is incentivizing those Naxals who surrender. So here's what the government scheme is. Naxals who surrender get trained in a trade of their choice so they can go ahead and secure a job. They're also given a monthly stipend of 2,000 rupees for 36 months so that they can find a job, until then continue to fend for themselves. Not just that, 1.5 lakh rupees is also given as an immediate grant. And if they surrender with weapons, then that amount actually increases based on which weapon they've handed over to the forces. And so, in a state like Chhattisgarh, for example, since January 2024, over 723 Naxals have surrendered and given up arms.